All right, guys. Final score. We've been doing sports interviews for the last year. Stepped out a little bit here recently. Did an interview with rock journalist Mitch LaFon, and taking it a step further, the first musician I've interviewed. This guy, if you were a fan of rock music in the '80s, particularly in the '80s, you had to know what this guy was. He came on my radar with a band called Frehleys Comet. You know, everybody knows I'm a diehard Kiss fan, have been since I was 5 years old. So when Ace goes out on his own, I followed Ace. But I'll tell you this, and I've told this guy, and I've told another member of this band, I came into it as an Ace fan, but those other guys, turned me into Frehleys Comet's fan. And with me tonight is musician Tod Howarth. Welcome to the show, Mr. Howarth.
Well, Stevie, thank you for having me. I'm very honored and happy to be here.
Yeah, like I said, I appreciate you doing this. Well, let's just get things right out. You're out on the West Coast, of course. So you're a little bit behind on our time. So we were trying to get things straight with the time stuff. But how did Tod Howarth get into music?
Well, let's see. When I was really young, I had witnessed the Beatles on Ed Sullivan's show. That was back in the 60s, and I was just mesmerized by what these guys were doing on stage, and all the girls were screaming, and even though I was too young to know what a girl really meant, I thought, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want to be. But I had, at the time, I didn't realize I had a musical talent. It was part of my mother and my mother's father's talent. They had singing and playing piano in their repertoires, not professionally, but just as a hobby, and it would later come out in me, where my stepmother had figured out that I was talented, and she got me to start taking piano lessons by the time I was about 7 years old. So that's where it really started, and I discovered all kinds of instruments that I could, anything I could get my hands on to play. Some of them better than others, but it was just a fascination with melodies and song creation and singing and instrumentation, and it hooked me, and it's there hooking me to this day.
Yeah, definitely. So what? I got to ask you, the first album you ever bought?
First album I bought with my money was probably, it was either I had a few Beatles records that were given to me, but I was young, so I didn't buy them myself, but I wanted the Beatles records. I remember Beatles 65 and Help, and I think one of the first records I bought by myself was probably Mark Bolan with T-Rex.
Yeah.
And then I bought a Paul McCartney album, I think it was called Ram, which really was a representative of stuff that I would go on to listen to. But those two records I remember quite vividly.
So what would you say? Yeah, I know you probably say the Beatles were a big influence on you. Who were some of your other influences?
Well, my influence has changed through the years. The Beatles, of course. Any good music that had song construction. I wasn't that wild about the Stones or the Doors or anything like that, but there were some songs that did strike me, and I did like them. As I got older, I got into more heavier stuff like Black Sabbath and eventually a band called Humble Pie, which my brother, actually he's my best friend, but from birth, but I call him my brother. He turned me on to that. He goes, "You got to hear this band." He said they're called Humble Pie, and he also turned me on to Black Sabbath, the real heavy stuff. And I was like, "What is this?" But those two bands were influential initially. I went on to listen to a lot of different stuff. I always tended to like either songs that were very well constructed or very heavy rock, which heavy rock back then was Black Sabbath and that type of stuff. But those types of bands were influential into the late 70s for me.
All right. So first band you were in?
First band I was in, well, it was my own band. Wasn't much of a band. It was a three-piece, two guitar players and a drummer. and nobody sang. We didn't have microphones, so even though I could sing, I wasn't singing. We had no bass player, and we were playing things like House of the Rising Sun poorly. I was playing a little bit of guitar, and I played some piano, and that was the three-piece. And then one of the first real bands that I was in was probably a top 40 band that was located out of here in San Diego, of which the guys I'm still friends with. And one of the guys that was the last bass player for this band called Cocoa Blue was my cousin by marriage, Jason Sheff, who went on to play bass and sing lead for the band Chicago for many years.
Wow, I did not know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
pretty cool. I'm like you. I like rock music. That's always especially the '80s era. It's probably my favorite era. But I listen to all kinds of different stuff, like Chicago. I'm a big Chicago fan. Stuff like that. I don't just go straight for rock.
And a lot of people are like that. I mean, a lot of rock fans are, probably reluctant to admit that they like different stuff. I mean, when I was growing up, I listened to, I liked Janis Ian, I liked Joni Mitchell, Carole King, Steely Dan, I liked Kansas, I liked, of course, I liked the Babies, John Wade.
Right, John Wade.
And so many different types of bands and styles, depending on the mood, but yeah, it is not too out of the norm for people to like a whole multitude of different types of music depending on their moods.
Right. So how did it come about that you get to play with Cheap Trick?
Well, when I moved to LA, I was pursuing. I had a original band that I moved up to play with there. A couple of guys from here in San Diego and some people up there. And then I ended up playing with a bunch of different bands in LA after that. And one band that I played with had members in it that were from the Chicago area. And they kind of knew the guys that played with Cheap Trick or were in Cheap Trick. And they also were working with a couple of producers and a keyboard player that did some work with Cheap Trick. And as time progressed, one of the guys that replaced Tom Peterson as a bass player was named Pete Comita, and I had played with Pete Comita and John Brandt in a band in L.A., and after those guys had sequentially ended up joining Cheap Trick, they were looking for a keyboard player that could sing, and they said, well, this guy that we used to play with in L.A. can do this, and that would be me. But I couldn't play with them at that time because I was playing with a band called 707.
707, right.
So I had to wait a few years, actually even longer than that, because I played with 707, then I went to Ted Nugent. Then I finally ended up playing with Cheap Trick.
So you get the gig with with Cheap Trick for a while. Now, I know how Frehleys Comet, well, I was a big fan of Frehleys Comet. How did that come about, getting the gig with Frehleys Comet, though?
Well, when I was playing with Cheap Trick, we were doing this one particular tour. This was I think it was in 86. We were on tour with John Waite when he was doing when he had the hit song "I Ain't Missing You" or "Missing You."
Yeah.
And I love John Waite because he's from the Babies, so I used to listen to their sound checks. And very rarely would John Waite be there, but the band would be there. And I'd be listening to the band, and they sounded great. This, powerful and bottom end heavy, and then Frankie LaRock on drums, and actually Arthur Stead was playing keyboards too for John Waite, and John Regan was playing bass for John Waite. So I just walked up to John Regan one day and said, "Hey, I'm listening to you guys' sound checks, and you guys are just phenomenal. I love the way you sound." And, he knew who I was. He said, "Oh, yeah, you play keyboards with Cheap Trick." I said, "Yeah." So we got to talk, and I told him what I could do. I was a guitar player, lead singer, songwriter. And so he kept that in mind, and we talked a little bit more. He told me, "I have a project I'm kind of working on, but I can't say who it is right now. I'll give me your information. I'll get in touch with you." So about probably 6 months later, 4 months later, he gave me a call, and he said, "Look, I'm working with Ace Frehley, and we got this band thing going, and we may be looking to consolidate the project from 5-piece to a 4-piece, and you might be the guy that we need." So that's how that happened.
Yeah, and the rest is history. I can remember buying, and a lot of these kids that are listening right now probably don't know what I'm talking about. Buying the cassette of the first Frehleys Comet album, and just listening to it, because I was just curious how it was going to be, and expecting to hear mostly Ace, but then get to track number 2, the Breakout, and I hear this guy, I'm like, whoa, this guy's got some chops here, and then you got Calling to You on that first album. That first album, a lot of people don't give it a lot of credit. That first album was really a great album.
Well, thank you. It was. I think all the pieces and the ingredients were there for us to go. I think a third album with Frehleys Comet would have really been phenomenal, because it was such a. We were trying to shape the band and the project into something that sounded like a band, because it was a real band.
Right.
But Ace was really, really into this project. He was really trying. He was in great shape. He was in great form. And I added some songs and elements and a singing ability that Ace didn't possess from the level of a singer. I mean, he knew that. That's why he needed another person in the band that could sing. And so it complemented the fact that here's the big guitar hero, the big lead guitar hero from Kiss, Ace Frehley, singing and playing, and then ripping on leads where I would get to sing, and that was kind of a nice combination. So it really had high promises. The things that transpired after the first album, of course, is, again, history now, but we had high hopes to do a lot of good things, and unfortunately, it never came to pass.
Yeah. Was it? I know some things in the past today, and Ace is kind of difficult to work with. How was he to work with? Was it? I don't want to put you out there or anything, but
well, I think that Ace. Well, no. The truth is, Ace was very amenable back then, because he was ready to do a lot of compromises. In fact, out of all the people I've ever played with, he was the one that gave me the most freedom to sing, to play, to write songs, and be a part of the project. So I have that to thank him for that, because that was extremely generous and important that I had all that freedom. I mean, that was the reason why I left Cheap Trick, or stopped playing with Cheap Trick, to join this project, because I thought it could work out well for me. And Ace he was not pretentious. I mean, everybody knew he was from Kiss, and he's the instrumental icon, guitar player, lead guitar hero, and he had all his due respects, and everybody respected him for that. But as far as working with him, he was great.
Right.
No problems.
Well,
I mean, as the next couple albums transpired, or time went on, there was minor things that came up and popped up, but that was just a sign of the times, and some of the, I guess you say, the band or company or label traumas and episodes that didn't make it very comfortable for us to continue doing what we wanted to do. But that usually happens in most every project, unless you're super successful, and then you still have problems. But overall, initially, he was very good to work with.
Yeah. And just talking about how good the Frehleys Comet album was, the second album, that's one of my favorite albums right there. You got Insane was that bass line that starts off on Insane. I every time I hear it, like, I do a lot of running, and if that song comes on while running, it just gets me kind of pumped up a little bit there. And then another song that's really an underrated song, Time Ain't Running Out. Over the years, I've really become a fan of that song. Dancing with Danger was good, but then It's Over Now. Back then in the 80s, you had a formula with a lot of these albums or CDs or whatever you want to call it. You had to have, it seems like you had to have, leading off, a good, powerful song, but midway through, you had to have a power ballad. And It's Over Now is a great power ballad. I remember hearing it for the first time, seeing the video, and I'm like, this is an awesome song.
Well, thank you so much.
One of my favorite songs of all time.
I appreciate that so very much. I get that quite often from some friends and fans that hear the song. And I had written the song in '86 for Cheap Trick to do, because I thought Robin could really kill it, but they kind of passed on it because I think probably because it's just too much of a keyboard heavy song for them. But we ended up doing it, and I had very high hopes for it. I played it actually for John in the studio when we were mixing the first record, and he was like, "Wow, we'll have to do that on the second one," which we did. And so John is really responsible for having that song come on the record. But yeah, we had high hopes. I had high hopes for it, and yeah, that was the era of the power ballad where you know, most big bands had some killer ballad to do, and I was just very, I guess back then, I was horrified or extremely disappointed, I guess is a better word or better phrase for the fact that the song didn't do anything. And I mean, there's reasons why it didn't do anything and speculation thereof, but I was just floored that we couldn't get any traction with that song because I thought it had a very powerful hook and a very good video, but it just didn't do anything for the band.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand how it didn't take off either. But I could go on and on about it, but I'll go ahead.
I appreciate that.
working with John Reagan, how was that?
John is a great guy. He's an old world Italian guy and in a bass player's outfit. So he's a very good businessman. He's a very good friend, very good business oriented, and watches where the shekels land, the money goes. And he's incredibly talented. He's a very good producer as well. He can hear a lot of good ideas and things, and he implements them throughout everything he does. We actually wanted to do some more stuff together after Frehleys Comet, but we both found we were going in different directions to do different things to, of course, earn a living, and it never happened until 4 by Fate came along, which was supposed to be a 25-year reunion for Frehleys Comet, which never happened. But John's a great guy. We get along real well, and we play very much the same way. As far as like when John and I play, I'm playing guitar and he's playing bass, and we got slamming drummer behind us, like the guy that plays with Return of the Comet right now and played with the Ace, Steve Budgie Werner. He's a phenomenal drummer who's just pounds it down, and it's such a solid feel. So it's a good feeling.
Now, that Return of the Comet, we'll talk about that. How is that coming about?
Well, a friend of ours who's in the business, who decided to put this thing together and approached John, and I also know his name's Tommy Higgins, and he had approached me about 15 years ago about doing some work with Aerosmith, because he works with Aerosmith. It was his idea to put together Richie Scarlett, John, me, and one of the drummers, which turned out to be Steve Werner, together to do Return of the Comet. Now, we've only done, I think 4 shows together so far, and we're coming up on 2 more here on the 28th and 29th, which are in, I think it's respectively New Jersey and then Long Island, I think respectively.
Okay.
And it's kind of a new thing. We're seeing how far it'll go. We don't know what's going to happen with it. I mean, it's such a long time ago for the Comet. We're not really sure we're going to be able to, dust up enough of interest in people to come see Return of the Comet, even though we're having a lot of fun, and the people that come see the shows are having a lot of fun hearing all the songs. Some of the old songs and some songs they've never heard before. So it's a lot of fun. We'll see how it pans out into next year.
Right. I know when there was a lot of rumors going around, especially with 4 by Fate, that there was going to be a Frehleys Comet reunion coming. A lot of people got excited. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of Frehleys Comets fans still out there, and I know it's been a long time, but seems like that would be something that would interest a lot of people. But do you think y'all would, if you did a Frehleys Comet reunion? And I know a lot of people were talking about, and this is, I don't think this is, I think this is a little too ridiculous, that Frehleys Comet, the reunion, would open for Kiss on the end of the road. I don't see that happening, but stranger things have happened.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, that probably would never happen for
A lot of reasons.
a few reasons. I think the primarily, Ace is a founding member, part of the original Kiss, and so that'd be kind of a hard thing for him to swallow. I mean, it depends on how you look at your perspective. I don't think he'd want to do that. He's also turned us down as far as doing a Frehleys Comet reunion because he's been very happy with doing his own band. He's had a couple of good bands out. One with Richie Scarlett that did very well. I mean, they complement each other lead guitar player wise and do a very good job of it. But as far as a Frehleys Comet reunion, like with John, me, and Anton and Ace, yeah, stranger things have happened. I don't know of anything like that happening at all. Ace is really interested in doing his own thing still.
Yeah.
And even if we did get together and do a few songs, I don't know, a few shows, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be with Kiss because there's a Gene and Paul element there.
Yeah. I thought that was ridiculous when somebody mentioned that. You know how people will talk on the Facebook message boards and
oh yeah.
Well,
it's a good. I mean, it looks good in numbers. It looks good on print and that type of thing. But yeah, there'd just be way too many conflicts of interest and pride and ego, I would imagine. I mean, I wouldn't care. I think it'd be fun, but it has nothing really to do with me or John.
Well, and no offense, because I am a diehard Kiss fan, but it would probably be I know it would be a lot better than watching a guy paint, and that's. I mean, that's.
Yeah, there's sometimes when you just need to go. Okay, I made my mark. I've made my history. And that's for each individual person to figure that out for themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't keep going and doing things because things wear out. Drummers wear out, vocal cords wear out. It's just tough on a human to keep, thinking they can rock at 80 years old, even though, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards seem to keep going at it. But it's a different kind of music. So, but yeah, it's tough. People want us to keep performing like we did 35, 40 years ago, and it's like, it's just a little more difficult, folks. I mean, those songs that I sang you're referencing, they're 30 and 31 years old now.
Yeah, definitely. And I tell you what kind of 80s rock fan I am. I went to a show this past Saturday night, one of my favorite bands from the 80s, Striper, and saw them at a local. And Michael Sweet had one of the greatest voices. But this has been, like you said, 30 years ago when he did Honestly and stuff like that. And there's no way, unless he knows something a lot of guys don't, that you can hit some of them high notes like he used to. But he did a great job. But there's no way.
Yeah,
after 30 years, it wears on you a little bit.
Yeah, there's physical attributes that you can't do it. I mean, I do pretty well with most of the high notes I used to hit, but there are some things that sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not there as good as they used to be or anywhere near. But the thing is, you do your best job and hope people have a fun time with it. But yeah, it's just hard. It's like expecting somebody to run as fast or fight as fast or as strong as they used to when they were younger. It's just not going to happen. I mean, I had so much energy and so much some drive and power when I was in my 20s, and then even in my 30s, 40s, and 50s. And this year I'll be 62 in a few months.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I'm getting up there. I haven't quite hit 50 yet, but I'm getting close. So it's a lot different than what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad, but it's a fact of life. I'm working on 3 solo CDs. Unfortunately, taking my time doing it because I don't have a choice. But I'm also working on my autobiography, and hopefully I get this stuff out by next year. but it is just, I'm looking forward to, some type of maybe retirement as well. I mean, I don't think I'll ever completely retire, but there's aspects of the music industry, I should say, that I'll retire from doing, because I just want to live the rest of my life enjoying something while I can still hear a little bit,
Yeah, I can imagine that's a little tough, because I know my wife she's a fan of rock music, but the other night at the concert, when the opening act was kind of more of like a Eagles type band, and they were, it was good, but then when Stryper plugged in and that first chord hit, she looked at me like, "Oh my gosh!" She said, "I'm not," and she told me afterwards, she said, when they played that first time, I could feel it all the way through my stomach, and I was like, "Yeah."
Oh, yeah.
And imagine like with you guys doing that over the course of a year, every night, almost every night over the course of a year. That's going to take a toll on your hearing too. So
yeah, it depends on the stage setup. It can. The sound is a little different on stage as it is in the audience. But when you play with the likes of Nugent and Rick Nielsen and Cheap Trick, and then Ace Frehley and me, and then it just after a while, your ears, like my left ear right now is ringing like crazy. Yeah. But that's because I'm working the studio every day, and then I'm also rehearsing for these shows coming up, and it just gets to the point where your ears are going, "Hey, give me a break,"
Yeah.
So I've still got some years out there, but the thing is, I'm not going to get to the point where I'm fooling myself and everybody else. I'll do it as long as people want to hear it, and then after that, it's like, okay, let somebody else take the reins.
You talk about doing some solo records, but you've done 5 solo records. That I didn't know that until I started doing my research on you. I didn't know you'd had solo albums that came out after Frehleys Comet.
Yeah, I have 5. It was the first one, Silhouette, and then I did I did all that actually with a drum machine because I didn't have a drum set. And then I did I think after Silhouette I did Cobalt Parlor,
right?
And that was with a real drum set. I had to practice for about 4 months to get halfway. I mean, anywhere near halfway decent. And then I did another one called West of 8, and then I did one called Winter, and then I did Opposite Gods, and then I also did a couple of little offshoot things. But now I'm working on 3. One's real heavy again, and the other one's going to be kind of like acoustic of Frehleys Comet songs that I sang or wrote. That'll be like an EP type thing because I'm not that many on the albums. And then I'll be doing like another, I guess for lack of better terms, it's like an adult contemporary type, not easy listening, but not heavy rock. It's just kind of like me, an acoustic guitar, and acoustic piano type thing, and so that's going to take a lot of time because I'm writing and playing everything myself and mixing it, of course, and producing it.
Well, you have to keep me updated on it. I'll definitely be interested in that. Is that going to be?
Thank you. Yeah.
Is that going to be released strictly online, or?
I'm pretty sure I'm going to do limited pressings of physical CDs because it's like I read a lot. I read extensively, and I like to have my books physically in my hands. So I'm not wild about just download music. I like to have the novelty of the actual CD in your hand.
And when I did the interview with Mitch LaFon the other night, one of the things I talked about was how much I miss, like you said, putting that CD or that album in your hand. And one of the first things I always did when I bought a CD or album, I read the liner notes. I was like, the liner notes, you had the lyrics. Some of them didn't have the lyrics, which was a disappointment, but most of them had the lyrics, and then you had all these little messages and who played with who played what, and who sang background. And it was just very interesting. And, that's, I really miss being able to go, because you get excited about stuff like that. You get excited about, guess what, today? And I mean, getting the Hit Parader magazine or the Circus magazine every month and looking to see when the CD was getting ready to come out, and then going to the record store, I used to get pumped up. Like the day something was coming out, I'd be like, all right, I'm headed to that record store. I'm going to buy that record. I'm going to buy the CD.
That was the only avenue. That was social media, as still frame. That's the only information you got unless you read books about these people because there was no internet. There was only some TV and some stuff that you could see that was out there just on a great occasion, a rare occasion. And yeah, there was a lot of fun about getting the album and read the liner notes and all that kind of stuff, because you learn stuff that you didn't know.
Yeah.
And you're right about that. There's a resurgence for vinyl, but that's for the audiophiles that want to hear the analog warmth off a record, which is a nice sound, even though most of it's digitally recorded. But yeah, that was a fun time. I mean, I remember getting stuff for whatever album I was getting and read everything I could on there about what was what and who did this and who did that. And I never knew that Elton John played with some stuff with on T-Rex with Mark Bolan. That was cool, you know. But it's nowadays you grab your phone and find out everything you want to know about somebody.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to have it at your fingertips, but it's still to me it's kind of sad. I miss the old days. I just miss popping a cassette or CD. My daughter looks at me when I talk about it, because she's got, she uses the whole iPhone and iTunes thing, and she looks at me like, you're crazy. You're crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy. But and I tell her, you never knew what it was like to be able to go to a record store today, on the day a record came out, and just see it.
Well, it was the intimacy of it all. It was the anticipation, the gratification of hearing it. There was no. It was right physically there in your hand. You could either put it in your, like you said. Hell, I was listening to 8-tracks too. 8-tracks.
I've got a few 8-tracks. I still have a few 8-tracks.
It's just wild how it's turned into such a situation now, where unfortunately there's a lot of pirating. I mean, we put out our Relentless 4 x Fate CD, and I think even before the damn thing was released, there was over 150,000 downloads illegally online. So it kind of kills our industry at the same time. This ease of access, it kind of destroys us. But yeah, back then, you got the store, you got the Tower Records or Liquor's Pizza or wherever you bought your stuff, your mom and pop places, and bought that record. It was in your hands, and you took it home and you read the notes. And sometimes it came with a poster, and you unfolded that, stick it on your wall, and you couldn't wait for them to come to town. And you bought your ticket, but it was all part of the intimacy process. Now there's just so many bands and so many things and so many choices. It's like a large menu at McDonald's. You don't know what the hell to get, and it depends on what strikes your fancy at that nanosecond.
Yeah, and I talked to Mitch a lot, and I know I bugged the crap out of him, but I asked him, who's somebody good up and coming that reminds you of somebody in the 80s, or has that kind of, and it's just not a lot of them out there. I just, most of the time when I do my runs, all the 80s hair bands are up there. Most of them, that's the majority of my list. I just can't. The new rock is pretty good. Some of them I can listen to, but I just can't get into it like I used to.
Yeah, it depends on your depth of indelibility. If you're really into that stuff, you won't really adhere to the newer stuff. There's a lot of stuff. I got into a lot of cool alternative stuff that was heavy. I'm a big Alice in Chains fan.
Right.
I like Stone Pilots, Soundgarden.
Stone Pilots, yeah.
Yeah, that's stuff I like, because I kept learning, like, wow, this is great stuff, new inventive melodies and arrangements. But for the 80s stuff, it's only going to come back around through youth that rediscovers that stuff. And then it has to hit a spark where people want to listen to it and enjoy it in the same manner, or at least get close to the same manner. So it's like with Greta Van Fleet, that band, little band that came out.
Now that's one I've got to check out. I haven't checked them out yet. I've got to check them out.
They came out, and it's sounding a lot like Zeppelin when I first heard them, and I thought, this is great. My wife likes them. And then I've heard some other stuff that they played on TV shows that didn't quite sound like I wanted the rest of their music to sound like. But I really haven't listened to them in depth. But it's really going to have to come back from youth,
right?
Because old guys aren't going to bring it back for the young people. It's just, there's some young people that listen to old music, but not the volumes of youth that's going to make it popular again.
Yeah. I will tell you that I volunteer coach at a local private school here, football, and they wanted like a playlist for when they come out and warm up and stuff. And believe it or not, the majority of the songs were 80s rock songs. I was shocked.
Yeah.
Wow, you guys know this? Okay, that's pretty cool.
Well, that's kind of a cool thing, it's a novelty thing.
Yeah. So you just answered my next question about you think rock music can make a comeback, like that kind of rock music back in the '80s. Like you said, it's going to take youth to get it back going again. But
yeah,
there's a lot of these older bands touring around. Going to these small places. The place we went and saw Striper at is a small venue, but it was just nice to see them again, to see these guys coming out again, though. And it's.
Oh yeah. It is. I mean, for the people who are really into this, certain bands, like we've got a lot of fans that showed up to see us in these 4 shows we did with Return of the Comet, and these fans are just thrilled to death. I mean, one guy traveled 3,000 miles
wow.
To see us. I mean, what a great guy, what a great fan. But they're so thrilled to see, somebody they treasured 30 years ago. And of course, I try to spend as much time as I can with them, and answer questions, and you really see it in their eyes that they're so happy about it, and that's great. But it's a far cry from the volume of people that listen to it initially.
Right.
So that really determines the longevity of the project. We'd love to get out there and do a full tour with this band, but it's not doable at this point.
Right. So 4x8, we talked earlier about that. We were messaging last night. 4x8's on the shelf for right now, right?
Yeah, it is pretty much with Rob Afuso from Skid Row doing drums. We had 2 other drummers, one A.J. Perrell from Twisted Sister who had passed away, and then our first drummer, Stet Howland, who went on, he had a horrible accident before he could even record one note with us, and he went on to play with Metal Church, and I think he's still with them now. He's had some ups and downs in his life. Then we had to change in guitar players from Sean Kelly to Pat Gasparini. Pat Gasparini is a great guitar player, great songwriter. Sean Kelly's a great person, a great guitar player, a different style. But it's one of those things, again, where you can take it out there and see what happens, but if it doesn't stir up enough interest, you might want to look at something else, somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's just, unfortunately, the reality of the projects. It's like if I was to try to go out here in California and do my own solo thing, it'd be a virtual disaster, because in California now, I mean, people know who I am here, but nothing like they do on the East Coast. As a matter of fact, I'd have trouble doing a solo thing on the East Coast as well, because you just got to get enough people interested or jazzed about it, and then have the time to leave their families or grandkids to come see me play.
Yeah, that's true. But okay, I'm gonna ask you a few quick questions, and then I'll let you, because I've taken up a lot of your time tonight. Favorite song you love to perform?
Well, let's see. I guess it depends on what band it's from. When I was with 707, I loved to perform "I Could Be Good for You." That was a lot of fun, because it was a pretty good, a fairly good hit back in the early 80s, 1980, 81, I believe. With Cheap Trick, it was fun to do, a lot of their songs. Dream Police was always fun to do. If You Want My Love, The Flame was fun. For Nugent, we did, his big hits were kind of, a lot of fun. Cat Scratch Fever, and then some of the stuff we did off the Penetrator album. For Frehleys Comet, I really enjoyed, it sounds selfish, but I really enjoyed playing Something Moved. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then Time Ain't Running Out, and we never got to play It's Over Now. Matter of fact, nobody ever heard that song live.
Really?
Until we never got to play it live. First time anybody heard it live was when we played with 4x8.
Wow. Yeah. I would have figured that with the video on, the video was on MTV, because I remember seeing the video. With that a rotation on MTV, I figured that would be something y'all would play on tour.
Well, it was going to be after we got done with the Iron Maiden tour. We were going to learn it, and I had to principally teach Ace to learn how to play it, because he didn't play a stitch on that song.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, little tidbits here and there. It wasn't done on purpose. It just was. He didn't play on that, and there's other songs and secrets about that album.
Right.
They come out later on. Some will be in my book, but nothing was done deliberate. It just happened as it happened. It's like the first album. A lot of stuff was recorded before I joined, and then I joined and I embellished a lot of stuff. But there was keyboard parts on that album that I did not put on the album, because I wouldn't have played those type of keyboard parts because they were too Tinkerbell-y to me. I would have played different stuff, So, yeah, I mean, that's just the way it was.
Yeah.
But, Breakout was always fun to play.
Breakout, and the thing that got me to really listen to Breakout more and more was the fact that, one of my favorite members, Ace is my favorite member of Kiss. Eric Carr is right there with him, and to hear the story behind Breakout, that Eric Carr was one of the writers on it, and to just made me listen to it even more, just because of that. And it was just funny. Oh, and you weren't on the Trouble Walking album. It was just funny to me how Ace had Hide Your Heart, and Kiss had Hide Your Heart on Hot to Shade, and they were both released about the same month. I was like, how did this work out? This is kind of like a jab at each other, or what?
Yeah, that's just a domino effect series of things, and I kind of know some of the story in there, but probably should let somebody else tell it. But it's something that Paul wanted to do, and John, I think, had got Ace to do it, and it was a good song. But I don't. It's kind of a song that I wouldn't have brought up, I think. But that was a lot of people think I'm a light, I'm a too much keyboard guy, but that's not the case at all. I mean, a lot of my guitar stuff is far heavier than Ace would ever do.
Yeah.
And when I did It's Over Now, it just was a keyboard song with some ballsy guitar and stuff, and then people said, "Oh, you bought too much keyboards to Frehleys Comet." I said, "Well, no, I never bought any keyboards except for I just played keyboards on It's Over Now, and that was about it." I mean, I did some stuff on the first record, but I wasn't the one that brought all the keyboard parts in it, because I would have said, "Look, let's do something else besides the keyboards. Let's stick some guitar in it." Because I wasn't that type of a keyboard player. But and then for 4x Fate, we had a lot of fun doing a couple songs. Moonshine that Pat wrote was a lot of fun. Follow Me, Pat wrote that one too. Then a couple that I wrote that we had fun doing. I guess it depends on how the crowd responds. Right. I like to play the songs the crowd responds to if they're having fun.
So you just reminded me of something. It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was a Frehleys Comet show pretty early on in Frehleys Comet history that Gene and Paul came on stage for. Am I right?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Was that awkward? Was that awkward, or was it was it everything?
No.
Okay.
No, it was fine. Matter of fact, it was. Yeah, I think it was an idea that it came to pass while we were rehearsing at SIR. We were in the big stage, and they were in the small stage. Gene didn't like that at all, but we got there first, so yay us, But no, matter of fact, I knew Gene. I had met Gene back in 1980 when a band I was playing with back then, who had a bass player and a guitar player that went on to play with Cheap Trick. I met Gene when we auditioned to open up for Diana Ross, when Gene was Diana Ross, and they came to an SIR show in L.A. or audition, and Gene remembered me from back then. So I knew Gene. Matter of fact, I got signed to Gene's label after Frehleys Comet for a short time. But no, when they came up, that was at the Limelight in New York, just before we went on tour with Iron Maiden, and it was like spontaneously planned, but we had a lot of fun with it, and it was a good time. I think it was good promo for both projects, and it was a good move.
That's pretty cool, though. I remember seeing the pictures of it, and I was like, "Whoa, that's." I was thinking that could be awkward, but that could be pretty cool too. Song you wish you wrote.
It has nothing to do with rock. One of my favorite songs of all time is "Against All Odds" by Phil Collins.
Oh yeah. See, that's another one. Phil Collins, Bryan Adams are two of my favorite musicians of all time. I mean, as far as
great songwriters. I like Seal too. Seal does some phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, Seal does. I like "Kiss from a Rose" was a great one. I really like that one.
phenomenal. I mean, the demographics of that style of music goes far and wide. I mean, I like, I even like Alanis Morissette. I think she's got some good stuff. I mean, there's a lot of different projects, but yeah, Against All Odds was what a powerful song. The movie was great. I remember seeing that movie in San Francisco in 1983 when I left. It was 83 or 84, somewhere around there.
Right. I think it might have been 84 when that came out.
Yeah, because I went on the tour with Ted Nugent in '84.
Yeah. Hey, and Collins to have the career after Genesis that he did, the solo career, is just phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
It seemed like he was doing soundtracks there for a while, but he's got an incredible voice. One of them, do you remember that song he did? That was one of my favorite songs. The song he did, and the lady, I think her name was Marilyn Martin, Separate Lives, from that White Knight soundtrack. I love that. I know I'm getting kind of off the rock, but that's just some of the stuff that I love to listen to. Favorite venue you played?
God, that would be one of the, I can't remember the venue, but it was a Summerfest. And we played there, I was playing there with 707, and we played with, Nugent was there, Rainbow, John Cougar Mellencamp, I think, oh God, who else is playing? Loverboy, maybe? I'm not really sure, but there was about 50,000 people there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
A lot of fun.
So, before I let you go, where is it we can keep up with the latest on Tod Howarth?
Well, I'm having my website is being revamped. I'm doing I've got my Facebook,
right,
of course, which is just my name. I may end up starting a Facebook, because my Facebook page it's about music, but it's all about everything in life, including some views that people may not like or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you've. I think I keep up. I get a kick out of it, and I pretty much agree with most of the stuff you say. The majority of the stuff you say, I pretty much agree with. And the pictures of the TV screen with your hand in front of it, sometimes I want to do that a lot too. So I'm not going to say what you're doing, but.
It's some of the obligatory stupidity is just amazing.
It really is.
It's just dumb. I mean, that's a whole other thing. Like I said, I read extensively, so I see right through a lot of this crap. But what I want to do, I may end up starting like just a music-only Tod Howarth page. But I'm gonna. So many plates spinning right now that I can only do certain things at a certain time. And once I start getting closer to releasing the CDs and my book, then I'll be ramping up with either my new website or the anything on Facebook with my name.
Right. Well, please, like I say, please keep me posted on both the CDs and the book, because I definitely want to get both of those. I'm like really thrilled to hear that right now, because I love to read.
Thank you.
I love to read, and finding, and just like when I do these interviews, if I can find out something I didn't know, like some of the things you told me tonight, stuff I didn't know, I feel like, wow, that's great. I get a kick out of that. But
it is fun to learn little tidbits, because for so long you assume one thing and it turns out to be something completely different. Like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's fun, but yeah, I will, and thank you for asking about it. And again, it's my honor to do this, and I'm thrilled that you find interest and enjoyment in all these things after so many years.
Definitely. One of my favorites of all time. But and just share it. Like I said, keep me posted on that. I'll share it on the Facebook site and try to. And maybe somebody else out there is interested too. I'm sure there's plenty of people interested right now. But
fantastic.
Can't thank you enough for doing this. I know I've taken up about an hour of your time tonight, but thank you so much for doing this. It's really been an honor to do it, and I'll be keeping up with you over here, guys. That's Tod Howarth. Thank you so much, Mr. Howarth, for doing this.
Stevie, thank you for asking me and having me here, and I appreciate it, and we'll talk in the future.
All right. Yeah, have a good night.
All right, take care. You too.
All right, guys, it's Tod Howarth on The Final Score.